is you can't seem to scroll down your Facebook timeline or your Instagram without somebody saying something about feeling anxiety or depression or overall concern. Last year, Vogue Australia wrote an article calling millennials the most anxious generation in history. And the truth is that they might be right. We know that 4 people, 1 in every 4 people that is, suffers some sort of mental health defect, according to the World Health Organization. That's 450 million people living with some sort of mental illness at some point in their lives. But what does that mean for us? And are we really the most anxious generation in history? After all, anxiety wasn't categorized as a mental disorder until 1980. And yet it seems that everyone born between 1978 and 1998 have had some sort of moment when they felt overworked, scared, depressed. What does it tie in with social media? Could it be a coincidence that those of us that seem to have too many tabs open in our heads also have too many electronics in our hands and too many tabs open on our desktops? Well, we're going to find out today by having a conversation on mental health. We'll talk about anxiety, yeah, but also some of the other prevalent mental health issues happening in the country and ways that you can begin to help and to cope. So call somebody, tell them that we are on, share the link, like the page, and let us know how you feel and how we can continue to help. You're watching Sip Sip Saturday with Star, and we're going to get started right now. Happy Saturday and welcome to Sip Sip with Star. Today we're talking about something really serious. Don't mind the smile on my face. We're talking about mental health awareness and we're talking about anxiety specifically. Millennials are like off the charts with anxiety, and I've got my good friend and sorority sister. Shout out to all my AKAs. Have to do it for my Delta producer and videographer. Giving them some anxiety today. But listen, in all seriousness, mental health is not a joke, and that's why we brought Tizelle with us. Tizelle has the master's in public health, and you may know her from Instagram as Regal State of Mind. Note the t-shirt, all about the logos here. And we're hanging out in Liquid Nutrition today, and I'm sipping on a Green Giant. Y'all, if y'all want some healthy in your life, come on down to Liquid Nutrition at the 04 Baytown Center. You will not be disappointed. Drinking all of my fruits and veggies this morning before we get started on this conversation on mental health. Tizelle, welcome to Sip Sip Saturdays.
Thank you for inviting me, Star.
Thank you so much for coming with us. And Tizelle, I'm going to want you to hold that mic. No need to be anxious about that. There you go. And I wanted to really talk to you all seriousness because I've seen so many people just kind of talking about feeling anxious about everything. And not just online, but on one-on-one conversations. I have friends that call and they just feel overwhelmed. They're sitting at their desk at work and they just feel frustrated or scared for some reason about the future. And I kind of wanted to know from you if it is a coincidence that we're living in this age of social media where people are seeing so many things and then also having these feelings of anxiety. As a mental health professional, what are your thoughts on that?
What I would say to that is that anxiety is probably one of the more common mental illnesses, if not the most common mental illness. And like you mentioned earlier, 1 in 4 people in the world live with a mental illness. And so it would make sense that people are expressing feelings of frustration, anxiety, not really understanding how to cope with everyday issues. But I think we're becoming more aware of ourselves and being able to admit that, hey, the situation is giving me an issue. I don't really know how to cope. I need help with situations, and that's a good thing. But then another point is that sometimes we misuse the word. So everyone deals with stress and anxiety at some point in time in their life, and that's just, a part of life. But we may have frustration and confuse it with anxiety, whereas what anxiety is long-standing issues where we don't really know how to balance our emotions. Everything is a trigger. It may be the pothole that we drove over. Or
Nah, Giselle, I got me some issues with road traffic, and I got me some issues. I love me some Desmond Bannister, shout out Minister. But that road out west, it have plenty potholes. I spent $900 on my car this year, so I mean, I could understand how that could frustrate some people. But I guess you're saying that it's not as simple as those situations that occur on occasion and may make us upset. To really have anxiety is day to day, to really just feel like you cannot cope.
right.
Okay.
It could be the single mom who is working multiple jobs, trying to make ends meet and not really having that support from family and friends. It could be a kid in school dealing with peer pressure or being bullied, things like that, or just trying to live up to the expectations of their parents. So it's the day-to-day things that we don't really know how to cope with, and we don't have I guess a coping strategy or some sort of mechanism to be able to balance out that stress.
All right. So one of the things I promise you guys is that I'm going to come back to Giselle to learn about how we can cope and what some of those mechanisms are, and whether or not there are actually spaces available for us in the Bahamas to begin to cope. We know that, as you would have mentioned, really just discussing feelings is new for us. As a society, we didn't really bother with that, especially our men, and which could be why women are often found to be more anxious or use the term anxiety a bit more. But is it anything to do with social media? Like two parts to this question, I guess. One, are the lives we're seeing on social media causing us to feel anxious, as if we're missing out on something and not doing something right? And then two, is it just trendy to say? Like, is it just everybody else have an issue, so I need to have an issue too? Like, how does that, do you think, play on this whole idea of mental health in our country?
Okay, so I think that social media is a huge trigger for a lot of people because, we have the highlight reels and we have the filters and different things like that. And most times with highlight reels, people only show the positive aspects of their life. So the glow up, they'd show that, or they would show accomplishments and different things of that nature, or they may have on a nice outfit that one particular day, but on a regular, they look a little basic, or but if you pay attention to their timeline and the Instagram stories and things like that, they you may give off the perception that, okay, my life is perfect. And I think by nature, a lot of people, they may be inspired, but then on the other hand, they may feel that, hey, I don't have my life together, and then there's a spirit of comparison, and so that could be a huge cause for anxiety and depression because we may be comparing ourselves. And then the second part of your question, I think there is a trend, both good and bad. The good part of the trend is that there's a culture of acceptance and saying that I need help. And seeing someone else express that, hey, I've went through this issue with anxiety or depression, or even like Mariah Carey recently, she expressed that she was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And so
I didn't know that, but I see Mariah.
But even in seeing a celebrity express, that they have been diagnosed, someone may have been diagnosed years ago and had shame about their illness, and now they feel more comfortable with speaking out against it, or they may have a relative that lived with a mental illness, and so now they feel like, okay, I could talk about it now, it's more acceptable. So that's the good part of the trend. There may be some people who just jump on the bandwagon, and I would hope that that's not the case, because those are serious serious issues that affect, your daily life. But I think in that instance, as long as you're advocating for mental health and mental illnesses, whether you have it or not, that's up to you. That's, a personal decision that you have to make for yourself if you want to jump on the bandwagon, so to speak. But if you're allowing people to feel encouraged and inspired to speak up about their own issues, whether it be a more common mental illness or even a more severe one, then at least you're getting a word out there. So that's how I try to look at it, and hope that people don't misuse, the agenda. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. Let's talk about the Bahamas specifically, right? I love the fact that you talked about Mariah Carey, because I know, like, people are dealing with mental health issues.
Right.
Someone very close to me is actually bipolar depressive as well, and tried to hide it for years, until behavior really let us know that something's not right here.
Right.
And she's come to terms with that. She's doing really well. She's on medication. And I'm so proud of the steps that she's making, but I know that there's still stigma attached. Like, people still wouldn't want their names to be called, people still wouldn't want, because there's this stigma. In our country, are there ways that you can go about kind of changing that? And how do we do that? And is there, like, places where people can get help?
So as far as places where we can go, I'm still trying to identify those places myself. But I know that, and I'm not, I think he's a relationship therapist, but I know Harrison Thompson, he's pretty good, and he deals with couples therapy. So anger issues, that's a lot, that's related to mental health issues and just helping couples to be able to communicate better with each other. And I think his dad, he deals with the day-to-day issues, so one-on-one, helping you to deal with anger issues, depression, things of that nature.
So that's Wayne Thompson. Okay.
And then the Bahamas Crisis Center, I don't know if they have therapists on staff, but they're really good for people who experience domestic violence, sexual abuse, and things of that nature. And then one resource that I would mention is the Department of Social Services. I'm pretty sure they would have therapists on staff. But I do think that more work needs to be done, especially in schools. So I spoke with someone who said that most of the guidance counselors, they may not have the skills and the knowledge to be able to really help kids, especially in public schools, because there was a situation that I heard about with a child who was acting out, and they had to take that child from one school to another school to meet with someone who could properly handle the situation. And I felt that was really sad, because what if the child couldn't, be transferred or anything like that? So I think there needs to be more work done. But as far as my brand, what I try to do on a daily basis with social media, trying to reshift the culture of accepting mental health and being able to have the confidence to seek those things out, is basically just letting people know that it's okay, educate about what mental health, mental hygiene, and mental illnesses are. And then personally, what I have done is try to identify online therapy sources, so that if you don't want to go in to see someone, you can have that option online, so that it could be confidential. You don't have to worry about people knowing your business and things like that. And then it's a resource that you could tap into anywhere around the world. So one option would be BetterHelp. I've heard that they're pretty good, and I think it's like $65 a month, I believe. And I may be wrong about that. And then I found this social media page called 7 Cups of Tea or something like that. I need to get back with you about the right name. But they have, I think it's free therapy services. And then if you want to be a therapist yourself or just an advocate, you can go ahead and help someone else yourself.
So why did you get into Regal State of Mind? Like, what made you say, you know what, mental health is where I need to go with this degree?
Okay, so like you mentioned earlier, I have a background in public health, and just in having issues with securing job opportunities. It was something that I thought about since last July. And I have a cousin that lived with a mental illness. He was diagnosed with cannabis-induced schizophrenia. His marijuana was contaminated maybe 15 years ago. And so he frequented Sandilands rehabilitation often. And right before Hurricane Irma had passed, he went missing after having a relapse. And we found him 2 weeks later doing our own investigation at the public morgue. We never really got any closure. And there seems to be some foul play at hand, and we never really got understanding about what happened. And they moved the process right along when we tried to do our own personal investigation. So before he had passed, I mentioned it to him that I was interested in just posting about mental illnesses, not even as a business. And he had mentioned that he wanted me to focus on ending stigma, because a lot of times we went out and it was almost as if I had to speak up for him and vouch for him and say that he was good. I guess because maybe he looked nervous or jittery, but in the Bahamas, I think we look at people living with mental illnesses and we kind of cast them off and say that they're not important, or I guess think that it's contagious. But I don't think he or anyone else living with mental illnesses asked to be in that predicament. And so in moving forward, I decided to turn it into a brand, because in the Bahamas there is a serious mental health stigma, and I want us to live well. I believe in people living not just their best life. Christ said that I came that we might have life and have it more abundantly. And so I want to be a vessel to help in providing that abundant living for something that affects everyone. If you have a mind, mental health should be of concern to you, even if you don't have a mental illness. And I just want to use my public health strategies and also culture, because I care about that, so that we can create our own culture where we embrace it, where and we advocate for those who...
Giselle, that's powerful. You see me getting emotional, and it's because I understand. Like I said, I have somebody really close to me who's diagnosed with bipolar depression. We've had the missing spells, and you know, it can be scary, and it's hard on families too. But we're not able to conquer it until we can talk about it. Right. So that's why I wanted to bring this to our audience today. So I hope they're still tuned in, because now I want you to let me know, like, what are some of those coping mechanisms that we can use to get by day by day. But you need to be concerned about your mental health. Right. And so it seems to me that there's like this difference here in maintaining health. Like, the same way you kind of go to the gym and you would like work out to try to maintain a healthy body. The same way we're in liquid nutrition, drinking our green smoothies to maintain healthy lifestyles. There should be things that we're doing to maintain our mental health and cope day by day. So what are some of those strategies?
Okay, so like you said, there is a difference between mental health and mental illnesses. Just as if you have an illness like hypertension or diabetes, that's an illness. Whereas, you know, you should just be concerned about your physical health as far as working out and things like that. And there are some activities as far as exercise is concerned that really can help with our mental health. And so there are 6 areas as far as healthcare is concerned, or self-care, that we can tap into so that we could improve our mental health. And so we have emotional health, which includes self-affirmation. So just reminding yourself that you have worth. There's professional health, like leaving work at work or setting boundaries. I think that's
going smoothly.
I think that there's psychological help, and so if you need to seek out help in the form of therapy or even go into a pastor for counseling, then you have personal health, and so setting and planning daily goals. I think that's an area that we sometimes forget. So I think if you provide structure to your day and just your life in general, that could really help. There is physical health, which includes seeing a doctor regularly, getting the proper amount of sleep, exercise, and things like that. Those really have an impact on your overall mental health. And so when you combine them together, you're taking care of the whole woman and the whole man, and not just focusing on one area. And there's also spiritual health. We are a Christian nation, and so, you know, joining with a spiritual community, practicing yoga, that's something that I've recently taken up that really helps with mindfulness, and it also helps with getting oxygen to the body, and you need that in order to have calmness, you have more vitality.
Okay. All right. Listen, I think you gave some good advice there. Some things I want to work on for myself personally. Sleep. Cairo, do you hear Mommy? Mommy wants to work on sleeping. Definitely knowing when to cut off work and making sure that we've got that work-life balance. And then the ability, like you say, to exercise and keep our bodies healthy, to keep our mind healthy as well. I'm down for yoga, man. So we have to figure out a way, like, we can go do some yoga together. Because I don't know where to start. And I'm really anxious about the fact that there are going to be people in there who've been doing yoga forever, and my downward dog is not where it needs to be.
So, I think, is it tomorrow? Baha Yogi Alex Kaufman, she's having She's having something out on Palm Key. I guess like a yoga
retreat
class.
type thing. Okay.
For the residents and then anyone in the Bahamas. And then where I started off was with YouTube.
Okay.
So, you know, you could find everything on YouTube.
You're right.
If you
No
personally
excuses.
want to find someone who looks like you so you can feel as if you're represented, YouTube is the place for that. And then you have Asana Rebel, and then there's Daily Yoga, where they not only give you the tools for poses but also with meditation.
Okay.
And so they have the music to help with mindfulness.
Okay. So listen, we got no excuses. There are a million resources online, and Tizelle has been great in giving us a few of them. Of course, you can follow Tizelle on Instagram at Regal State of Mind. Are you on Facebook or any other social media handle?
I am on Facebook at Regal State of Mind, and then I just recently launched my website. It's www.regalstateofmind.com.
All right, so you can find her at Regal State of Mind. Look at this Regal Queen. She's an AKA after all. And we're so grateful. I have to do this for my producers. You need to see their faces right now. Every time I bring that up. Shout out to all of my Delta fam as well. Listen, thank you guys so much for tuning in with us today and for watching Sip Sip Saturdays with Star. Of course, we're live from the Old Fort Bay Town Center. Their menu is amazing. They even have drinks just for beauty, right, Giselle?
Yes.
And this is called Beautiful Eyes. And Giselle's eyes are already gorgeous, so we can expect just a little more glimmer in them. But definitely some awesome drinks to check out and to make sure that you are living your best life. Continue to meditate. Continue to be calm. Don't let the potholes get to you like they get to me. And we're going to get through this anxiety thing together. There's nothing that we can't do. So keep watching Sip Sip with Star. Giselle, I want you to put that mic down and toast with me, girl. Here's to a better Bahamas and a better state of mind. And we're going to be back with another episode next Saturday.